Hello there, welcome back to the channel. And today, in light of various bits and pieces of nuggets of information I keep getting or hearing or reading about Babylon 5, I wanted to share, as I've covered B5 on this channel occasionally, I don't cover it very often. I am actually a huge Babylon 5 fan. Loved it since it first came out. I've seen all the spin-offs, the animated. Not huge on the comics, I'll admit, but that could be said for anything. I'm not a huge comic book reader. Not anymore, anyway. I was when I was younger. But I was a huge fan of the TV series, a big fan of Crusade that spun off from it. Absolutely love that show. If you're not familiar with Babylon 5, it was, in brief, a space opera. It was created by J. Michael Straczynski, or Joe Straczynski, whatever you want to call him. It was made in the late 90s and was one of the most perfectly made ensemble shows ever. Although it certainly didn't define the idea of a serialized show, it did do that concept probably better than any other show that was contemporary to it. There were a few other close contenders. Star Trek dabbled with it around that time with Deep Space Nine, and there's a whole controversy there about those two shows, which isn't relevant to this video, but it wasn't really something that was done. Most television series beyond up to that point, whether they be sci-fi or otherwise, were kind of episodic, meaning it was monster of the week, bad guy of the week. And if there was an overarching story, it was a love story. It was a, like will they, won't they kind of thing, or it was a, like with the X-Files, it's going on in the background rather than necessarily being the centerpiece of the show. Babylon 5, on the other hand, was an absolute masterpiece of a series, which took different characters, fleshed them all out thoroughly, gave them all a character arc, made them all heroes and villains in their own light, but made none of them clear-cut. In other words, no one was all good, no one was all bad. The show's heroes and villains all had shades of grey, except for Morden. Morden was a piece of shit. But it was kind of good, though. He was so good. I mean, as a villain. Same with Bester, Alfred Bester. Two characters who were absolutely fantastic in the show. But both of them were infinitely likable. Other characters, such as G'Kar, played by the late Andreas Katsulas, and the late actually applied to a lot of the cast of Babylon 5, unfortunately. That was possibly my favorite character in the entire show, and a lot of that was down to Andreas Katsulas' performance as G'Kar. G'Kar started out as a prototypical villain. His race are the Klingons, sort of the series, how they are started to be portrayed. But as it goes on, G'Kar evolves from this sort of aggressive warrior type to becoming more of a philosophical leader and more of a poet and a scholar with a warrior undertone. Certainly a strong and powerful sense of honor, but his sense of right from wrong becomes defined more as the show goes along. In the early stages, he's all out for revenge and blood against the Centauri, but by the end of it, although he can never forgive the Centauri, he actually is able to forgive Londo Mollari, another absolutely fantastic character played by Peter Jurasik, for what he had done, but also for all that he had done to help the Narns in his character growth. It's a complicated story, but that's the point. It's a complicated story that's so well done. You've got basically this idea of the rise and fall of different alien empires. That was the impetus of Babylon 5 in its inception. Humans are by no means the good guys. In fact, I would say for the majority of it, humans are portrayed as arrogant, greedy, militaristic, expansionistic, and quite violent. Although some races see them, such as the Centauri do, they see humans as a little eccentric. They are still viewed with a little bit of caution. They've turned themselves into a major power in a relatively short space of time. But humans are a race within the show that, again, are hard to classify, but it's the same thing with everyone. Whereas a lot of series portray a single race as almost one note. Babylon 5 doesn't portray any race as one note. Certainly they take inspiration from certain cultures from our history. The Centauri are clearly based on Napoleonic France. not exactly hard to get away from it, from the namings and the way that they dress and the fact that they call themselves the Republic and their accents and all the rest of it. But all the same, none of these races are clearly just villain, just good. And even within them, there are individualistic elements. Some are worse than others amongst those that are bad. Some are better even amongst the bad. Others are evil amongst the good. It shows a sort of the diversity of the universe within a 5-season arc. And again, all the while in the background, you've got these huge arcs of massive interstellar wars, the internal turmoil and politics of various different alien races, and it doesn't just focus on the humans. Of course, they're a big part of it. There are lenses into that universe through the eyes of the main crew of Babylon 5, who are, of course, human because it's a primarily human station. But you get to know and love many of the other characters. Again, Londo Mollari, G'Kar, even Ambassador Kosh, who's a character who could be kind of hard to relate to because he's non-humanoid, you never really see his face, and he wears an encounter suit. But even through him, we get to know the Vorlons. Through Morden, although he is human, you get to know the Shadows and their motivations. Through Lorien, you get to know the ancient races. Every character, sometimes small at first, such as Zathras, gets fleshed out as they go further along. The show is very good at dropping something in season 2 and then picking it up again in season 4, and you didn't even realize it. It's better on rewatches than perhaps it is on its original first watch. That's hard for me to define now because I watched this back when I was a teenager, and I'm now well into my 30s. So it's a bit of it's hard to look back on. The show, of course, had multiple mini-movies. It also had attempts at spin-offs, such as Legend of the Rangers, which was a failed spin-off. They only did the pilot, and Crusade, which had a spin-off movie, A Call to Arms, which is excellent, and then a 13-episode series. But although that was a failure, there were attempts at other things. There was the Lost Tales that was more, not recent, it was probably over 10 years ago, I believe. But there were also the much more recent animated movie that has made a big impact and is making waves. And now Joe Straczynski keeps announcing about how, they're shopping around for a new production company, someone willing to actually make it. There have been talks of a reboot swirling for years. I usually pay no credence to them. But when a show has stuff like this, and I'm going to play a little clip here where, one of my favorite moments from B5.
Okay, so just ignore the mess in the background. It's laundry day. This has to be one of my favorite scenes in B5 ever. The scene where Delenn comes to the rescue just after B5 decided to secede from the Earth Alliance is a powerful scene. There's also something infinitely satisfying about it. I mean, after all, Sheridan isn't one of the main heroes. It's one of the strengths of B5 that, although, yeah, you've got kind of your main, but there's no true main. It's the very definition of an ensemble cast. Everyone gets their moment to shine. Delenn is a politician. She's an ambassador. She is good at her job, but this shows that there is, she's got a past that's not as black and white with the Minbari as it is perhaps in humanity. You're a politician, not a soldier. You're a soldier, not a politician. Sometimes you are both. Sheridan has elements of both, but effectively he's primarily a soldier. And he's in a military situation. He's an accomplished soldier, and at this exact moment, he has lost. He's defeated. You can see it on his face. He doesn't know what to do. They've just defeated the first wave of Earth Alliance warships sent against them. And now, out of the jump point, come several more warships telling them, stand down, prepare to be boarded. He's already had the damage report. He's still got enemy troops on board. They're still fighting all over the station. The hull integrity is compromised. The power systems, the weapon systems, they're all kind of twitchy at this point, and it's like, we are in no condition for a fight. It's a good job this just ended, and it's about to start again. And then suddenly, jump points opening above them, 4 more warships inbound. Even if he had some powerful ace up his sleeve that he was clearly thinking, like, what can I do in this moment? Is there something? Is there a maneuver? Is there a tactic? Is there a strategy? Some way of delaying them, distracting them, defeating them? But then 4 more ships are coming. But then, obviously, those 4 more ships... Those 4 more ships aren't what he thought they were going to be. And we have incoming ships that are friendly.
Captain,
Just look at his face. That realization that he's lost. He can barely even respond to the information his subordinates given him. 4 more jump points have just formed. The scene, it literally gives me chills. Literally. The line delivery, just the timing of it. The look on Sheridan's face, just here, this little smile. He knows he's won.
Why not? Only one human captain has ever
This
survived
line.
the Minbari fleet. He is behind me. You are in front of me. If you
Value your lives. Be somewhere else. It's just an awesome scene. I'm sorry. It's an awesome scene. And really, ordinarily you'd be on the side of the humans in this. It's like, oh, dirty alien xeno scum. But no. We're on the side of our heroes, aren't we? They're the bad guys. Humans, it's similar actually referencing the Warhammer franchise in the B5 universe, are not so clear cut. The good guys. We're not necessarily the heroes of the story. We are, some of us, but then you've got people like Morden, you've got people like Clark. It's Bester, possibly one of the greatest villains in science fiction history. These men are not good people, and they're human. And although yes, we have humans in the main story, the B5 station itself is human. Humans are not necessarily always the good guy. They're not even on the side of angels in the Shadow War. We're on the wrong side overall. Yeah, it's a group of humans, many humans, that fight on the right side and they fight against it. But you think about that versus the wave of the tens of billions of humans that exist, most likely by this century. The majority? No, they're not.
When a show has moments in it like that, it's hard to get your head around. Do you want to reboot? The original is so good. But with Joe Straczynski actually involved in it, he was the one that made that in the first place. It could be that good again. But a controversial hot take here, and I'm by no means an expert. And I'm not actually saying this is a problem. I don't think it is. But I can kind of see where the studios might see it as a problem. Or why it's stopping a reboot from getting off the ground. A lot of the time, the original makers of a show don't have anything to do with a remake. So the fact that Joe Straczynski is so involved with the production, but is also so against any significant changes being made to his IP, has actually probably in itself prevented a remake from getting off the ground, I think. Because I think it would have been done already if he'd basically butt out and just let them make whatever they want. But I think if he did that, we'd probably get a hunk of garbage. And he himself has said the best way to go is the Ronald D. Moore way when he remade Battlestar Galactica. You take different elements of it, smush them together, and create something new to tell a different story. They set this up in the animated movie by exploring the multiverse. This has opened the door for a rebooted series that technically would be within the same multiverse. I know it's a bit of a dried up topic now, multiverses, but theoretically it could exist in the same multiverse as the original Babylon 5 series, which the animated series has now demonstrated there are multiverses within the Babylon 5 universe. So that original universe can remain intact and untouched, and maybe even be seen again, but an entirely new story can be told. And although the cliff notes of it, from what I have read, picked up from his X account and other things, other YouTubers have commented on it, it sounds like the story is very similar to the original one. We're going to have the Shadow War. Sheridan is a character again, probably not played by Bruce Boxleitner. Unfortunately, of course, many of the cast of Babylon 5 have passed away or have kind of aged out to being able to play a character of that age group anymore. Hell, I'd be too old. So, yeah, I can see why they'd have to recast. But it does open that door for the potential for a new series. But the question is, would you even want it? I love the original show. I think I'd be on board for a reboot. And I do think if Straczynski's involved in it, I think that's a good thing. It can't be a bad thing because, again, he made the original and he's been so protective over it. I think he would tell a new and very good story. It's whether anyone will let him because, again, the world has changed in television. And as much as serialized stories like that are a thing, they tend to be much more condensed now, like 12, 13 episodes, sometimes 10 episodes, sometimes 8 episodes if you go with something like Halo. And Babylon 5 was like a 20-odd episode per season show, plus movies. Some of which never even got made, so I'd actually like to see some of them. Even in the animated format, there was like a Shadow movie meant to be made. And it was never made. It got cancelled. It got all wrote and everything. The script and everything exists, but it actually never got produced. And that's a great shame, because that would have been a really good film to see. But what do you guys think? Would you want to see a reboot of Babylon 5? Or would you prefer to see a continuation within the same universe, maybe just a few years later? There would probably be some retconning, though, with that idea, due to the fact that although nothing was strictly made, Straczynski did do bottle episodes that showed the future. And it probably would be tying your hands a little bit narratively to suddenly have a different timeline. So alternative universe, spin-off, soft reboot probably is the best way to go, but is it something we want? Let me know in the comment section below.